Welcome. Today, we're diving into an explainer that completely flips the script on one of the biggest mysteries in all of literature. I mean, for centuries, people have debated this. Why on earth does Hamlet wait so long to avenge his father? Well, we're going to unpack the true burden of seeing. When you map out the source material visually, you realize this isn't just some old story about a weak, indecisive prince. It actually shifts into something way darker, way more profound, and honestly, infinitely more fascinating. It's a terrifying study of the human mind. So let's just get right into it. Now, I want you to just sit with this question for a second. Think back to your high school English class. The standard essay we were all basically forced to write is that Hamlet is paralyzed by his own inherent weakness, right? We just write him off as fragile, overly emotional, or just this chronic procrastinator who can't step up. But what if that completely misses the mark? What if that traditional reading is entirely backwards? What if the real reason he stops dead in his tracks isn't a lack of courage at all, but rather this profound, overwhelming surplus of comprehension? Imagine having a superpower where you instantly see the hidden motives of literally everyone around you. He looks at his mother, his uncle, his childhood friends, and boom, he instantly perceives the deception, the guilt, the complex political machinery running right beneath the surface. He understands exactly what's happening, and what he understands is deeply, intensely dangerous. He actually grasps the sheer crushing weight of consequence. Have you ever felt paralyzed by a massive life choice, like choosing a completely different career path where every single outcome seems terrifying? Now multiply that feeling by 1,000. Looking at it through this lens, it's not that he lacks the physical ability to just act. It's that his deep comprehension of the situation, the massive ripple effects of every single choice, creates this total gripping physical paralysis. Moving forward simply becomes almost impossible. Okay, let's dive into this and systematically dismantle that traditional narrative. We're constantly fed the same 3 bullet points. He overthinks, he delays, he completely fails to act. These are the common myths that frame Hamlet as just some passive, confused victim of circumstance. And yeah, it's a really easy, convenient narrative to digest, but it fundamentally misreads the core of his character. He isn't just sitting around lost in the clouds for no good reason. The absolute truth is he's a deeply, almost painfully hyper-aware individual. He is analyzing the complex layers of reality, morality, and consequence so much more intensely than anyone else in the play. Like when his old buddies Rosencrantz and Guildenstern show up, he doesn't just say hello. He instantly sees right through their friendly facade. He knows immediately their spy is sent by the king. Reframe Hamlet not as a confused kid, but as the absolute smartest, most perceptive person in the room, and it changes the context of literally everything that follows. Let's look at the ultimate catalyst here. When Hamlet first encounters the ghost of his murdered father, think about what a modern action movie hero would do. They'd whip out a sword, drop a catchy one-liner, and march straight into the throne room to start swinging, right? But Hamlet does what any sane, highly intelligent person would do in that utterly bizarre situation. He stops. And this rapid-fire spiral of internal questions kicks in. Is this ghost actually real? Can I even trust my own eyes right now? And the spiral just continues, and the paranoia really sets in. Okay, so if the ghost is real, is it actually telling the truth? This triggers a deep, anxiety-inducing inability to trust his own senses. He isn't just questioning the message from the ghost, he's questioning the very fabric of his reality. If ghosts are suddenly real and they're just wandering the castle at midnight, well, what else is real? What are the actual rules of the universe he's living in? And then we hit the most terrifying possibility of all. What if reality itself is an elaborate trap? To get this, you really have to remember the immense theological terror of that era. He is deeply afraid that this apparition is actually a demonic entity. An evil spirit basically wearing his father's beloved face just to trick him into committing an unforgivable sin, damning his soul to eternal hell. The internal chaos here is just deafening. He's standing at the edge of a sheer cliff, and he isn't even sure if the cliff is real or if jumping is going to ruin him forever. So the crucial point is this. Doubting the very fabric of reality entirely freezes your ability to move forward. Think about it. You can't strike an enemy if you aren't absolutely certain that the enemy actually exists, or if your entire reason for striking them is built on some demonic lie. When you reach a point where you can't even trust what you see or feel, taking action isn't just hard, it is inherently profoundly dangerous. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it maps out the inescapable logical and moral trap that revenge creates in his mind. The source material points out something that most basic revenge stories completely gloss over. Step 1.
If he simply follows orders and kills his uncle Claudius for justice, he immediately triggers step 2. He inherently becomes a killer himself, which inevitably leads right to step 3. By committing murder, he officially becomes part of the exact same systemic rot and corruption he is trying to destroy. The entire internal debate shifts right here, and the stakes get infinitely higher. It's no longer just a simple, practical question of whether or not he should act. It morphs into the much heavier, soul-crushing moral question of what the action will turn him into. He realizes that pulling the trigger, so to speak, taking that final fatal swing of the sword, will fundamentally alter his own identity forever. He's going to cross a line that he can never, ever walk back over. Which brings us to arguably the most famous quote in all of literature: to be or not to be. We so often casually dismiss this soliloquy as mere depression or sadness, but our explainer redefines this brilliantly, and it completely changes how we should read the entire play. It's actually not sadness at all. It is a profound, paralyzing fear of the unknown. It's a raw admission of the terrifying uncertainty of what comes after death. He genuinely recognizes that human beings, despite all our philosophies and all our religions, have absolutely no concrete idea what happens next. Death is the one door you simply cannot walk back through, and that ultimate uncertainty is exactly what paralyzes him. Because the absolute truth of the universe is, once you act, once you take a life or end your own, you can't undo it. Take a second to just let the oppressive weight and the absolute permanence of that fact sink in. To really hammer this home, let's look at a direct, powerful contrast within the story itself. On one side, we have Hamlet's cold, freezing analysis. He sees multiple outcomes, he questions every single variable, and as a result of that immense processing power, he freezes. On the other side, we have Laertes' fiery, immediate rage. Laertes doesn't question a single thing. The second he feels wronged, he moves instantly. He's your traditional, reckless, hot-headed revenge hero. This stark comparison perfectly illustrates why deep, critical thinking and swift, decisive acting simply do not work together. But look closely at the catastrophic result of Laertes' blind action. He acts faster, yes, for sure, but he falls significantly faster. Because he acts instantly without the vital burden of foresight or critical thought, the villain Claudius easily manipulates him. Claudius literally hands him a poisoned sword and points him at Hamlet like a loaded weapon. Laertes' complete lack of thought becomes his fatal flaw, which, ironically, proves that Hamlet's extreme paranoia was completely justified all along. And this brilliantly illustrates the ultimate tragedy of our protagonist. Hamlet's greatest asset, his immense, unparalleled intelligence, is actually his inescapable curse. Just look at the heavy, compounding cost of this awareness. He sees the ugly truth hiding behind the fake smiles of the royal court. He deeply, painfully understands the intricate, messy web of human morality. He questions absolutely everything, trusting no one, not even himself. Which brings us to the core philosophical conflict of the entire story. Have you ever known way too much about a complex situation to make a simple, easy choice? That is exactly where Hamlet lives, permanently. To swing a sword, to take a human life, to actively alter the course of an entire kingdom, action requires absolute certainty. And Hamlet, precisely because of his brilliant, hyperactive mind, lives in a constant, agonizing state of doubt. He doesn't wait because he's weak. He waits because he simply sees too much to ever be certain. So how does it all finally end? In the very last moment, Hamlet does act. But look at this timeline. It isn't born from a conscious, triumphant, heroic decision. First, his massive overthinking finally reaches its absolute physical limit. Second, the entire world fundamentally collapses around him in a frantic, bloody scene. His mother drinks from a poisoned cup, bodies are literally dropping to the floor, absolute chaos erupts. And third, action is violently forced upon him. Contrast his hours of quiet, careful thinking with this moment. His final strike isn't a choice, it's a desperate reaction to his environment completely imploding. As we step back to wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a provocative thought. If we pull away from the specifics of the play and look broadly at the human condition, Hamlet's story isn't just about the simple hesitation of a grieving son. It's a massive, timeless warning. It asks a deeply unsettling question that echoes through centuries. What actually happens when a person understands the complex, messy world a little too clearly? The terrifying reality is that extreme clarity is a trap all of its own. Because sometimes, when you see everything, you can't do anything.